Really good, very informative, very inclusive, and I love the live experiences that almost every speaker had.
Definitely recommend. I'd happily come to another one myself.
The fact that we've been able to network today has been amazing. There's been lots of opportunities to do that. Range of speakers was amazing. You're learning from experience rather than from assumptions, which is always brilliant.
Many people don't really know the best way to support us. And if we can raise that awareness through events like this, that's marvellous.
We've had a great time today and it's been really, really insightful. We've took a lot from it.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Skill Sessions webinar. Everybody who is just joining, welcome. I can see that the webinar is quickly filling up. So it's great to have you all here at another Skill Sessions online webinar. Lots of familiar names joining, so that's great to see. It means we're doing something right, and lots of new faces as well, so that's fantastic. So as that kind of little promo video suggested, Skill Sessions is an event series that's both online and in person, hosted by us, by CareScribe, designed to share knowledge about areas of neurodiversity and disability. We're here to help build and foster an inclusive community for these sorts of topics to be discussed. Each event is on a different topic, and we're very excited today to have Elizabeth Takyi, the neurobox ambassador, joining us and speaking on embracing intersectionality, bit of a tongue twister there, for neuroinclusive workspaces. Lovely to see so many here. Please use the chat. I know you already are, but come and tell us where you're joining from. Say hello. Get the conversation going. As is always great on these events. Also, make sure you change your Zoom setting in the chat to all, so that everybody can see what you're saying. Otherwise, you're just saying hello to me and my team, which is lovely. But say hi to everyone. And please keep posting throughout the webinar and ask questions and things as they pop into your head. Okie doke. So whilst people are joining, I'm going to tell you a little bit about CareScribe to kick us off and who we are. So my name's Rich, and if you've not met me before, I'm one of the founders and directors of CareScribe. And if you haven't heard of us, CareScribe is an assistive technology company based in Bristol. Myself and my other two co-founders, Chris and Tom, we're all neurodivergent, as are many people in our team. And as a company, we spend every day working to support disabled people and neurodivergent individuals to work and study independently. And we do this by building technology, building assistive technology. So we've got two software tools, which you may have heard of. The first one is Captioned. Captioned is a captioning and note-taking tool that helps people better comprehend and retain the huge amounts of information that's thrown at us every day in our busy lives. This is, of course, of tremendous value for a wide range of disabilities and neurodivergent profiles, from those who are deaf or have hearing loss, who may have difficulty comprehending what's being said, to those like me who are dyslexic, have ADHD or ASD, who may have similar difficulties or find it hard to focus and retain information, or even for those who have motor impairments and may find it difficult to get their thoughts down on paper quickly. So that's Captioned, our captioning and note-taking tool. And we also have a product called TalkType, which you might have heard of, which is our dictation software, which is designed to help people convert thoughts into text, something that a wide range of people find very challenging for a wide range of reasons. If you want to find out any more about any of our assistive technology or how we support people, then please feel free to pop a message in the chat or in the feedback at the end, and we can set up a demo for you. And of course, there's lots of information on our website at carescribe.io, so feel free to join that as well and have a little Google and get in touch. Right, brilliant. Again, people, welcome as people are joining. I can see the numbers are rattling up, so that's fantastic. Quick bit of housekeeping before we kick things off. Captions, they are available through Zoom, and you should be able to just enable them with your own on your own computer. So please feel free to do that. I mentioned questions. Feel free to use the chat continuously during the talk. And if you've got particularly poignant questions you want answers to, there's also the Q&A section. So please pop things in that, and we've got a dedicated Q&A time at the end, so we'll get back to those questions. You can also upvote other people's questions in there. So if someone asks a question and you think, gosh, I really want the answer to that, then upvote it and we'll try and make sure we get it answered. There's no wrong questions. This is a safe place to learn, so please don't hold on to your questions, get them down, and we can try and answer them. You'll be glad to know this session, like all our sessions, is being recorded, and look out for an email from Lucy, who will ping over the recording after the webinar, and it's also going to pop up on our CareScribe LinkedIn tomorrow. Yeah, look out for that. Final thing to mention is this is our last online skill sessions webinar for the year. Our next session is actually in person. So in November 7th, we're in London doing an ADHD awareness webinar. So please come along to that. Tickets are now live. We've got 5 days of early bird ticket prices available now. It is a paid-for event, but all funds go to the ADHD Foundation, so it's raising money for a good cause. So please join us in London. We'd love to see you there, taking this virtual webinar into the real world. So yeah, we'll ping out some invites after this, and it'll also be on LinkedIn. Right, well, without further ado, I think it's time to hand over to Elizabeth for her talk. So Elizabeth, if you're ready, you can share your screen and pop your camera on, and we can get going. So yeah, I'll hand over to Elizabeth. There you are. Brilliant. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Embracing Intersectionality for Neuroinclusive in the Workplace. Lovely long words, but you know what? We'll get through it today. When Richard was giving the introduction, he did actually mention, intersectionality. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I've been practicing, so it should be all great. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. You will take a lot of information away, and also I'm talking from my lived experience of living with dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, ADHD, recently diagnosed, and I'm also on a waiting list to get autism assessment done. So my name is Elizabeth Takyi, and I'm a neurobox ambassador. Prior to joining neurobox, I ran my own organization supporting dyslexics in the workplace, as well as in education and as well as employment. And today I'm really happy and excited to be speaking to you all about dyslexia and also neurodiversity and intersectionality for neuroinclusive in the workplace. So a little bit about me. I've got 15 years experience or just over in the ND space. I've worked in colleges, I've worked with schools, I've worked with adults in the workplace, as well as all the other areas of SEND when I originally started. Now, what got me into working within this space is obviously because of my neurodiversity diagnosis, and I really wanted to give back to community. So for that reason, I decided to embark on this journey. One of the most beautiful jobs I've ever done in my entire life is working within the ND community, and I absolutely love what I do. So that's a little bit about me before we actually dive into the webinar. So what is intersectionality? For just a minute, I'm just going to get the attendees to actually write something in a chat box, what you think intersectionality is. And that will be for about maybe a minute. Now, just to say, I say a minute, but I do have severe dyscalculia. So if I do go over that minute, I think, I've got lovely Jen here who's going to say, Elizabeth, you've actually gone over time. So let's give ourselves a minute to write something in the chat box, what you think intersectionality is. Thank you. Okay, I think, you know, a minute may be up or maybe not, but like I said, because I've got severe dyscalculia, I don't want to sit here for like 10 minutes thinking that's a minute. Really bad with timing as well. So we'll actually leave it there, and you can keep, you know, you can keep writing your what you think it is, whilst I continue with this presentation. So I think there's a few there, and we'll probably go back and, you know, maybe when we finish, we'll go back and look at some of the things that people said what intersectionality might be. So today I'm talking from a lived experience and how intersectionality I can use the word affects me in the workplace. And I'll be speaking on race, disability, being a Black woman and being a woman at the same time. So that's what the presentation will be based on today. And I speak from that because this is my lived experience. So everything I say here is from my lived experience, and also the last 7, 8 years working with adults with ND in the workplace, neurodiversity challenges in the workplace. So that's what I will be speaking about today. But intersectionality, as we all know, obviously can have an overlap of all different areas. For me, it will be about what I've just spoken about just now. So, right, so what is intersectionality? So the complex, now words are a problem for me, by the way, dyslexia. So even though I've got massive big words going across a lot of my presentations, I will try my best to pronounce them, pronounce it how I see it. And I think it's quite authentic actually to have a dyslexic person with you know, a PowerPoint with massive big words going across the page. But I'd like to say that intersectionality, the complex is that cumulative. That's it, I did it. I've been practicing this for about 3 weeks, and I've got that word.
Elizabeth. Sorry, Elizabeth, I think we've lost sound at your end. I don't know if other people are having the same problem. Just a quick, yeah, looks like. Oh. I'll be still struggling on the old sound. I'll let you know as soon as we can hear you again, but at the moment the sound is...
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We've got you, you're back.
Oh, I'm back, wonderful, wonderful. Sorry about that, Richard. So I don't know what, if anybody heard what I said earlier, but I gave the example of what intersectionality is and read it. And I hope everyone saw the PowerPoint slide at that time. So intersectionality originally was a pioneering scholar and a writer on civil rights, the name of Kimberly Crenshaw. Now, the pioneering scholar and writer on civil rights, she actually described intersectionality as crucial race theory, she is actually a Black feminist, legal theory and race and racism and law. In addition to her position at Columbia Law School, she is a distinguished professor of law at the University of California, Los Angeles. Crenshaw identifies 3 aspects of intersectionality that affects the visibility of non-white women. And I've got 3 points here. So she talks about structural intersectionality, political intersectionality, or representational intersectionality. Next slide. So what is the importance of embracing it in a workplace? Now, what we normally say is that if we don't look at intersectionality as a whole, you may find employees that are actually struggling in a workplace. So if there are any HR managers here today, or senior leaders, or section managers, or whoever you might be, it's really important that you understand your employees. And when we embrace intersectionality in the workplace, we can bring our full self to the workplace to create an inclusive workplace for everybody, so to speak. And there's a quote that is by Audre Lorde, and she said, "There is no such thing as single issue struggles because we do not live single issue lives. Now, I've got layers of other things that, you know, will be intersectionality in the workplace. So, for example, there is no such single issue. So I've got dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, ADHD. I'm a Black woman. I'm a woman and then a Black, you know, and obviously a single parent with all the other layers that go with it. Now, when I'm coming to work, those things don't stay at home. They come with me. And obviously, you know, if I've got a line manager who may not, you know, see me as one day being very jolly doing my work, and next day it's like, actually, I'm really struggling with my ADHD today, or I may be struggling with my dyspraxia or whatever it might be at the time. So this quote really resonated with me when we actually found this, and I thought it was a really good quote to actually put up as we deliver this webinar. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about me and my intersectionality and my identity. Next slide. So like I said earlier, you know, before, this is Elizabeth with all the other layers that I bring with me to work. One of the most beautiful things at the moment is to be working for an organization where I can be myself, and that is neurobox. Now, in the past, I'd work in organizations where I've probably hidden some of these things. Can't hide my complexion, can't hide being a female, but one thing I can hide is all the others that go with it, and trying my best to actually fit in. And that has brought some huge challenges in the past, in the sense that I never wanted to be found out. I didn't want anyone to know I've got dyslexia. I didn't want people to know that I can't add up or tell the time. If I'm running late to a meeting, you know, all these things were a huge impact for me in the workplace. So how it's really benefited me is by, obviously, as an individual working for Neurobox, has been something that they're embraced at work. And I'm hoping that HR managers or senior managers or anyone who's actually joined us today would understand the different levels of intersectionality or what people might have or might be going through. And hopefully this webinar would give you some tips, top tips to take away with you. So my lived experience and the struggles I've had with neurodiversity and all the other challenges. And I'm just going to go to that slide, so bear with me, please. 1 second, just trying to navigate this as well can be a bit of a challenge. So my lived experience and the struggles. So BAME, Cultural Perspective Overcoming Stigma. Now, I would actually say that for me, it's more BME rather than BAME. And that's another topic for another day completely. And, you know, there are stigmas, there are challenges, both from, let's say, for example, outside of work and in work. And I'll also be covering the difference in all the challenges I've been going through, the lack of support that it may be for me as an individual and some of the people I've supported in the past. And sometimes you find that when you come together with people with neurodiversity, particularly from the BME or BME group, you'll find that we're all singing from the same hymn book. So people might talk about their challenges with financial issues or not being able to afford certain assessments or not be able to culturally speak about the differences that they have. And obviously that can have a huge challenge on them when they're performing at work. So I will be covering the difference, lack of support, lack of neurodiversity understanding and the awareness. You know, sometimes I'll go somewhere and I'll be speaking to people. It could be a networking event. It could be where I've gone to give a speech or talk rather. And somebody might come up to me and say, well, actually, what is neurodiversity? I know it's a new buzzword and it's been a word that is quite fancy, but sometimes I will break it down and explain what neurodiversity is in a nutshell. I'll also be covering financial issues where not everybody can afford an assessment. And I know that today we're talking about intersectionality in the workplace. So some workplaces may be able to, for the workplace needs assessment, but on the individual people, it might be a struggle for them to be able to do that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I always go about the story so far. So you see the young lady in that image there. She's on her own. She's in the middle of nowhere. She's got a rucksack on her back and she's alone. And sometimes that's how I feel. That I feel like no one else gets me. I also feel like I'm on my own. And I also feel like, listen, why am I doing this by myself? But, in the past, it's felt like that. And in fact, sometimes it can actually still be the same. And I think it's really important that I share my lived experience story with the individuals here today to tell them about where I started from, how it all became, and where we are today. So this is me, Elizabeth. Some of you may have already attended some of my talks. You probably follow me on LinkedIn. I do, sing and talk about dyslexia and neurodiversity, and I've been doing this for the last 7 years. So you probably see a lot of my work all over the social media and internet and everything. And that's because I'm passionate to make a change, really passionate to make a change for people who are struggling with neurodiversity and disability, and also other long-term health conditions. So I'll give you a little bit of a background. So I was born in the UK. When I was 2, my parents took me to Ghana, to West Africa, and primary school was a challenge for me. And that will be another webinar session completely. We won't go into details about my growing up with dyslexia back in Africa, but I can touch up on it that no one or teachers or even my parents knew what dyslexia was at the time. So I'd always struggled in the education system. It was really tough for me. I was always banking off school. I was distracted in class and so forth. Now, in Africa, when I was in Ghana, when I was going to primary school, if you weren't achieving and you got something, like if you did a test or something or an exam and you got it wrong, you will be caned. And if anybody who's joined me here is from like Nigeria or Ghana or any of those African countries, you know what I'm talking about. So it became a bit of a trauma for me. But fast forward, I came to the UK when I was 12 and went into secondary school. And when I knew that I wouldn't get punished for not being able to read, write, and spell, suddenly it was like, actually, I can do what I want here. I don't have to learn if I don't want to. That had a huge impact on me. You know, leaving secondary school with very little qualifications was a bit of a challenge. So how dyslexia was found or diagnosed, shall I say, was when I decided to change my life around. By this time, I'd had 2 children. And in 2004, I decided to embark on a new journey with learning. So I remember going to South Bank University, and walking into the foyer of the admissions department. And I remember saying to the admissions lady that was sitting there that I'm here to learn. And she actually said to me, well, what do you want to learn? I didn't have a clue what I wanted to learn, to be honest. But there was space on a human resource management degree. And I said, I'll do that. So when I joined the class, I didn't know I had dyslexia at the time. So I was really struggling. And I remember my university lecturer saying to me that, do you think you've got dyslexia? And I was so much in denial. I didn't want to accept that there could be anything like that. But in the end, I had to go for the assessment. And this is where dyslexia was picked up. And ever since I was diagnosed with dyslexia at university, I then, my wings were so wide that I could fly like an eagle. And I just wanted to say, anyone here, if you're embarking on education or anything like that, and you think you might have dyslexia, but you're not too sure, I would definitely advise you to go to your student services department and get the support that you can get. So that's where dyslexia was diagnosed in 2004. I then left college, graduated, and moved on into the working environment. Now, this is where a lot of the challenges happened. Because I was so much in denial and didn't want to accept dyslexia, I was really struggling in the workplace. And I remember the first job I ever got, and I will actually mention the company's name, I was actually working for the Metropolitan Police Service in the HR department. And when I first got the job, I did not disclose dyslexia, and I'm not proud of that, because I was really worried about being stigmatized, or what were people's perception of me. So I didn't disclose it. As a result, I really struggled in the workplace. And in the end, out of shame and embarrassment, I actually left the company because I didn't disclose it. So disclosure in itself is a completely different topic. So at some point, perhaps, we might do some sort of sessions on that, because it is a different topic completely. And as a result, because I didn't disclose, I really struggled in the workplace. So I left that, and then I decided to go into education. So I went and did my PGCE. And from there, I met a young girl who also had dyslexia. And I think a penny dropped for me when I was teaching in West Thames College. And it was like, actually, I wonder what's going to happen to this young girl when she finishes her course, go into the real world. Would she get the same challenges that I had when I was at the Met Police? So a penny dropped and I decided to set up a company a year later. And A2I Dyslexia was founded, and we've helped so many people over the years. So I'm going to now speak to you, the next slide, please, Jen. So I'm going to now speak to you about the highs and lows of living with all the conditions that I've mentioned. Now, I say condition, some people say learning difference, some people say learning style, but for me, everything you see on there, which is dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, ADHD, visual stress, anxiety, and also being a Black neurodivergent woman has had a huge impact on me in every area of my life. So dyslexia will be, and it's not just the reading, writing, spelling, it's everything else that goes with it. Sometimes I get really anxious that I'm not able to do certain things. I get frustrated that I can't read certain texts, and then the anxiety kind of sets in. Many people that have met me face to face will say, actually, Liz, you don't seem like somebody that would worry about things like that. But it does become a bit of a stumbling block, especially when you're not able to pronounce certain words, or you're not able to say certain things, or sometimes part of my dyslexia will be, I'm speaking, I forget what I'm supposed to say. So I have to stop, think, and carry on. Or sometimes I might speak really fast because I want to get everything in, and then people don't understand what I'm trying to say. So some of the highs have been, one of my highest moments has been like obviously running A2I Dyslexia and supporting many people that needed the help. That's one of the most great achievements that for me has been really great for me. Now, statistically, if you look at it on paper, everything I've spoken about, like drop out of school, playing truancy, not being able to focus in class and being a troublemaker, so to speak, and I'm not proud of any of that. That was when I was young. On paper, I really wouldn't have come as far as I've come. But what's really helped me is to be able to embrace all these different conditions and be able to go for the help I needed. And obviously with the assisted tech and workplace needs assessment, I've managed to really excel in my career. Thank you. So, I didn't mention some of the lows, and going back to that slide, some of the lows have been obviously the mental health aspect of it, the worry, the not being able to do it, all the things that go with, like depression and things like that. And I've had all that. I've gone through all that. And sometimes, I say to people that if you really find out you're really struggling, please do seek help. So if there are any HR managers here today and somebody comes in and says, look, I've got dyslexia and I'm really struggling and I've got anxiety and all sorts of things, one of the things I would recommend is have a safe space for them to be able to speak to you about their challenges. Thank you. So when we talk about intersectionality, Kimberly Crenshaw also gives an example of that. There are overlapping identities, and what she says is without frames that allow us to see how social problems impact all the members of a targeted group, many will fall through cracks of our movement. You see how I'm stumbling there. Left to suffer in virtual isolation, but it doesn't have to be that way. Now, I can tell you that statistically, the prison inmates or prison statistics is that at least 40 to 50% of prison inmates have got dyslexia. And when we talk about falling through the cracks, it's getting the help and support you need at the time. And I do have stats, and some of the stats are like 4% of people using Job Centre Plus have got severe dyslexia. And, obviously if they don't get the help they need, then obviously they can't excel in the workplace. Three things to keep in mind in terms of intersectionality and all the other things that go with it: ethnicity, gender, age, sexuality, disability, culture, class, and religion. Now, I can actually say that everything I've mentioned here, I can identify with. And some of these things could be a real challenge for me in the workplace if we don't embed intersectionality into our policies and all the other things that we do. So 3 things to keep in mind: social identity categorized overlap. And number 2 is these categories, particularly minorities, relate to the systems and structures of power and discrimination. Now, I want to give you a little example of that. There's a young girl that I used to mentor when I was running my organization, and she was working for a very large organization. And she went to her line manager and actually said to her that she's got dyslexia. She was a young Black girl. And it was actually dismissed in the sense that her line manager didn't understand where she was coming from. She also have English as a second language. So I think when she came to me, she did say to me that her manager was saying, is it because maybe, you know, English is second language, that's why you're struggling to do the task I've given you or the role that you have? Or is it because you have dyslexia? And I just want to bring to everyone who's here, I want to bring to your attention that it doesn't matter what your background is. So if you got a second language, for example, you can still have dyslexia and still, you know, not being able to perform in your work because of it doesn't matter. It's not because you can't speak English. That's why you're struggling. I think that's the example I want to give. So no matter what your background is, you can still have dyslexia and still struggle. And it's got nothing to do with the fact that you know, English is not your first language. So I thought I'd make that very clear. And some categories occurred more privileges than others. So when I give the example of the young lady that I was mentoring, she did actually say to me, now I use the word, maybe I'll just say, for example, we say that the other person was known as Sarah. So Sarah was a white middle-class girl who's also got dyslexia, but there was more favorable going towards Sarah than there was for this young lady. And she just said, I don't know why I can't get the help I need or the support I need. And that's why I want to actually bring to the attention of everyone here today is that there is a lot of racism in that setting, in a sense that, you know, Sarah can get the help she needs, but the other lady can't. And, you know, I just want HR managers to be quite mindful of things like that. And it can really have a huge impact on the individual. So I want to give you top tips for embracing intersectionality in your workplace. And the first one is not one size fits for all. And we all know that not one size fits for all. So I may have, you know, I've got Jen with me here today. For example, I've got dyslexia, but let's say Jennifer on the other side, or let's just call the person another name. Let's say Stacey may have dyslexia. Our dyslexia would never be the same. So Stacey might be able to give you that 15,000 word report. I may not be able to do that. Now, I've often heard that in the workplace, or I've had the experience of people speaking to me and say, well, actually, if she can do it and you both got dyslexia, I don't understand why you can't. I just want to say that everybody's dyslexia is different. Neurodiversity, ADHD, autism, whatever it might be, it affects us all in different ways. One of my strengths is that I can't put words on paper. And if I can, sometimes it's mumbo jumbo. But one thing I can say to you is if you put me in front of 10 million people, I can give you a talk. I can give you a presentation of what I want to say. But I don't have so much confidence when it comes to writing. It doesn't mean I can't do my emails, I can. But that's when maybe, you know, workplace needs assessment comes into it. And I get all the assistive technology to be able to, you know, correct my word and the wording and everything else that I'm trying to do. So it's about taking a holistic approach and person-centered approach so that everyone has space to be their authentic self. Thank you. So, and then we'll talk about encouraging a safe space for employees so they can bring their whole authentic self to work. There are some really challenging words in here, isn't it? But we'll get there, I promise you. And that's really important that we, you know, embrace the differences of the individual and what their challenges are. And the PowerPoint presentation I shared earlier, Elizabeth with all her different labels, so to speak. And just to say to our attendees, I actually, the labels that I have, which is dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and all the other labels I have, I actually take pride in that. And not everybody takes pride in things like that. But for me, it's a real privilege to be able to know that I can say to somebody in a workplace, I've got dyslexia and I need help. And that makes me feel liberated, you know, if I'm able to say that. I just want to say that, you know, for the second slide, which is embracing a safe space for employees to bring their whole authentic self to work, senior management can be involved in encouraging them to share stories and lived experience of their overlapping identities. Create a safe environment for employees to feel comfortable and confident to voice experiences and challenges. That's really important. Of course, we talk about collaboration, and that's really important. You know, some organizations may have employee resource groups, or they're also known as staff network, to encourage people to work collaborate. Oh God, there you go, massive word. I love it when you know, sometimes it becomes a bit chaotic when I can't use a certain word. I'm going to try this word out, collaboratively. That's right, got it right. And it's really great for people to work together and bring all their different skills, knowledge, and talents that they can bring to the table. And if there is any D&I managers in this webinar today, it's really important that we encourage different diverse groups to come together and bring all their skills and talent so we can have a better workforce and we can have great productivity in the workplace. And you can do this by having members that may be part of different groups and different network. Lots of organizations are now embarking on employee resource groups. And, if anyone's here and they haven't even thought of that, it might be a really good idea, perhaps after today, to try and speak to your team and see that if anybody's interested in setting up ERG. So the third point I want to say is hiring practices. And it's really, really important that when we're hiring, we do incorporating intersectionality into your hiring process, which will allow you to attract people with different experiences and knowledge. Also, taking a look at your hiring practice. Does your policy and practices incorporate and embrace intersectionality? That's something that, is good to take away. Also, providing your hiring manager with inclusive recruitment training so that, that they can embed all these things into hiring practices. Just going to take a quick water. Sorry, everyone. This is my favorite slide. Now, I say it's my favorite slide because intersectionality and dyslexic thinking. Now, I can confidently say the whole 5 points you see on this slide is me. So when we're hiring somebody, for example, and they've got dyslexia or they've got all the other ND conditions, it's really important that you look at their skill set and you look at the strength they can bring to the company. Many years ago, the word dyslexia, people would literally look at you and they have their own perception of what dyslexia might be. But now that we're all speaking about neurodiversity and all the other conditions, it's really great for us to look at the bigger picture and see what different employees can bring to the table. And the first point that I want to say is, for example, I'm going to use me as an example. So I make connections that others don't see. And that's a great talent to have in any organization. So I cut through the noise and see the bigger picture. So sometimes there might be an issue at work and somebody might think, how do we actually solve this problem? And they're tapping away thinking, how do we actually solve this problem? And you've got good old Elizabeth standing in the background going, it's actually that simple. Why don't you do it this way? And every employer would want to have somebody who can see the bigger picture. So communication is, communicate complex subjects through storytelling. I do lots and lots of public speaking. I do talks, I do webinars, I do podcasts. I've done live shows in the past. And we are great storytellers. And if anybody here have got dyslexia, would probably agree with me on that. Not every dyslexic person is probably confident in speaking in public, but they will have their own strengths to bring to the table. We are, as dyslexic people, problem solvers in different ways. And we bring new ideas to the table. Now, when I say that, I want to sort of look back and look at our great entrepreneurs that have got dyslexia, or in the entertainment industry, for example. So we're looking at our actors, our actresses, some of our politicians who might have dyslexia, and all the other people that may have dyslexia, but they'll bring strength into the workplace, and all the other neurodiversity conditions that they may have. An example I can think of is maybe somebody like the actress Whoopi Goldberg, one of the great actress who, we put on our television, and no matter what mood you're in, she can actually make you smile and improve our mental well-being, if I can say that. And then we look at our Richard Branson, Jamie Oliver, all the other people that may have dyslexia, and they've done great work. I mean, I did some research, and the founder of IKEA have got dyslexia, and we all shop in IKEA. I'm sure we've all been walked through the door and see the great stuff they can do. So when we're hiring, we're looking at the bigger picture of what the individual can bring to the table. And the list and example of dyslexic people, I could be here forever telling you what the list of strengths they can bring to the table. So build, support, and empower team, people, and organization. So this brings me to the end of my presentation, or if I can say the webinar. I want to say thank you to everyone who attended the session today. You know, if you've got questions, and I'm sure we'll have loads of questions in the chat, you know, I may not have the answers for you, but if I don't know the answer, I'm sure we will find out the answer for you. And on that note, I'd like to hand back to Richard and say thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this very amazing and a very important topic, you know, which is intersectionality in a workplace, and how we can all build a neuro-inclusive workplace is very important. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. And I'll hand over to Richard now. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Elizabeth. That was fantastic and yeah, enlightening. And we've got lots of comments in the chat that yeah, are popping up. So yes, thank you so much, and thanks to everyone for participating in the chat as Elizabeth was talking. And please ask your questions. So ideally, if you can pop them in the Q&A section, that would be brilliant. But if not, the chat's fine, and we can and my team can pick them up and pop them in the Q&A. You're getting lots of, hopefully you can see the chat as well as Elizabeth, because you're getting lots of great feedback. But yeah, I think one of the best things we've seen over both this webinar and previous webinars is just that you know, talking about your personal experience, how many people can share in that, and that openness really just kind of drives more conversation. So yeah, thank you for sharing, and thank you for everyone else for doing exactly the same. So I'm just gonna if I can pull open the Q&A section, but keep the questions coming. So yeah, good comment. Actually, well, a couple of good comments from Cathy Hall here. One is around, it's just worth, because I think it might spur a bit of yeah, some conversation, is around NHS waiting lists for assessments such as ADHD and autism being around 3 years. And also the sort of negative stigma that's associated with private assessments, which I think is, I know there was a thing was it in the BBC not too long ago, probably a couple of months ago, right? About ADHD assessments, and the sort of really drove kind of a negative connotation towards those. But yeah, and then on top of that, if you go privately, there is sometimes some difficulties transferring care and treatment across from private to NHS. But Elizabeth, I don't know if you've kind of experienced any of that in your kind of work, and that kind of that sort of I guess disconnect between private and public healthcare systems. Obviously, cost difference, some stigma associated with the private, and difficulties in transfer.
I mean, yeah, in terms of the workplace needs assessment, obviously, you know, if somebody's in a workplace and they identify themselves as having a neurodiverse condition, the first thing I would advise is to speak to your line manager, and then that triggers down to your HR manager. So in terms of the workplace, you know, we can get the support we need, but sometimes when somebody's just like the question, whoever's asked that question, it is very expensive. And, you know, the waiting list, I mean, at the moment, I'm on the waiting list to go and get my autism, because I just don't know. I want to get my autism assessment done, because I know there are overlaps. And I've been on that waiting list since 2019. And I've been told that it could take longer than that. You know, so some people decide to go private, but it's a cost thing, and not everybody can afford that, for example. So in terms of the workplace, you speak to your line manager and speak to HR, and then it will be up to them to go and get you the right support that you need. Privately, yes, I did watch that BBC program, and it can be very pricey. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. And there's another question here which says, as well as making reasonable adjustments, how can we promote all the benefits? So I guess that's, I think that ties into the conversation around the you know, there's just so many benefits to being neurodivergent. You know, it really isn't a negative thing, but yeah, how about promoting those benefits within work? I
mean, one thing I will say is that in a workplace, when I was working for myself, as well as when I think I used the example of when I was working for myself as the founder of A2I Dyslexia. Access to work was a great place, you know, for reasonable adjustment. And it was really great to be able to get a support worker to help me with my work that I was doing. In terms of if you're not self-employed and you work for an organization, some of the benefits are assisted technology. Some of them, as you know, speaking to your line manager and actually being open about that particular condition that you might have. And I also think it's really important that employers would have, for example, we are neuroinclusive organization. For example, some companies at the bottom of their email, they'll have we are disability confident company. Things like that encourage people to come forward and speak about all their different challenges that they may be going through. There is stigma, and there is stigma across all the communities, but I would say so much from the community I'm from, there is a huge stigma, and there's a lot of myths around, ND conditions. I can't speak generally, but I know that some people that I've worked with in the past, there are so many different myths that go around, and as well as people's perception of what ADHD or dyslexia might be. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd add as well, I mean, I know there's lots of department and business leaders on this call, and I certainly find, as a leader in CareScribe, and I'm sure some of the team that's on the call, the more we as leaders can talk openly about the problems and the struggles that we have, and the diagnoses we have and how that impacts us, and we benefit from them, but also have difficulties, the more that kind of opens up the conversation for others. So I think leading by example there as well is and being open to sort of encourage others in the organization to do the same is really important. A couple more questions coming in. What kind of educational material can one share with one's HR department to help educate RE neurodiversity and specifically dyslexia? So is there any educational tools that we can sort of share with kind of HR departments to help educate them?
When you say educational tools, it's a little bit tricky. And the reason why I say it's tricky is because the individual person have had a workplace needs assessment, which would obviously, their report would tell them what they need. So for example, for me, one of the tools I need to be able to perform really well in my work is drag and dictate and text for help. I can never say the right word. And all the other, assistive tech that I use to be able to support me in the workplace. So I wouldn't be able to say this specific assistive tech will help everybody, because everybody's ND condition is different. So it's up to, the individual's report, and, when the workplace needs assessment does all the assessment and everything, it will be tailor-made for the individual person. So there isn't a generic sort of educational tools that can help the individual person. Yeah. So it's about, obviously, dyslexia and all the other ND, everybody's story and journey is completely different. So that's when the PowerPoint, when I said not one size fits for all. So it's about, engaging with the workplace needs assessor, reading a report, finding what help they need, and tailor-made for them as an individual, rather than, there is no generic for everybody. For example, I've got my dyslexia glasses, and when I'm really struggling to read, and I can actually put it on now, when some people carry their overlay with them when they're out at work. Some people have the overlay on their computer. I prefer glasses. I don't want to be walking around with different papers, because I think with my ADHD, I lose everything, and also dyspraxia. I'm not that organized in that way. So blue works for me. It may not work for Stacey. Stacey might be a pink color background, or George in the office might be a green color background. So it works differently for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Elizabeth. Question here from Emma. What would you say are the main challenges? What would you say were the main challenges being a neurodivergent Black woman CEO?
Oh, wow. Okay. Being a sorry, I even get the word twisted now. So being a neurodivergent woman CEO, wow, challenges. There were huge challenges. Working for myself, I could actually be me and carry on being me, But what some of the challenges were, for example, when you are a CEO of an organization, I'm getting all my words twisted here today, lots of words, and that's part of my dyslexia, just to say, Richard, part of my dyslexia is words and trying to remember what these words are. Some of the challenges would have been, obviously, you are the CEO, so you're overlooking the whole of the organization, and memory retention, and trying to remember all the things that needed to be done. And when I was working for myself, I had an amazing, great team. So I was out there doing what I was doing to grow the business in terms of income generation. and all the other people in the different teams brought their skills and talent to be able to support the organization to grow. So some of the challenges were trying to keep on top of everything, to be honest with you, and having dyslexia. And also, I think it's really important I mention this, one of the challenges was to be able to hear someone's story which resonates with you, but then they don't know where to go for help. They've come to you, but they don't know what else to do next. And in terms of financial, they can't afford to be able to, for example, go for an assessment. That took a huge toll on me. To be able to know that I can't help somebody and to be able to unlock their full potential because of financial situation or the struggles they may have. And hearing their story that resonates with you, it's a bit traumatic sometimes. And then you hear, you know, their story of their lived experience and it really resonates with you. But I look at myself as actually, I'm all right because I've got the help I need, but they can't have the help they need. That was one of the biggest challenges for me. Yeah, because they can't afford the services, or because they're afraid of being found out, or because they don't want no one to know that they've got dyslexia. That was quite challenging moments for me. Yeah.
Imagine. Oh, thank you for sharing. That's fantastic. Yeah, really useful for people to hear. Lots of questions keep flooding in, so we'll try and get through as many as we can. But if we don't get to anyone, just to say we can share them amongst ourselves and get back afterwards. And a question here, which I think is a really important one and touches on something you said before. How have you found access to work in relation to providing appropriate and relevant equipment, assistive technology and software? I have felt sometimes that decisions have been made about the support that I need based on preconceptions of what someone with dyslexia needs rather than my specific needs.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that, Richard. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I've even had people say to me, oh, are you struggling because you can't read and write? And I'm like, that's not even the issue for today. Today's remembering where I am, who I am, and what I'm supposed to be doing, you know? So some of the challenges, you know, trying to kind of make sure that everything is okay for you to be able to thrive in a workplace. But, you know, going back to when I used to work for myself or with HY Dyslexia, because we have such a great team, such an amazing people who would, you know, the team would just pick up from where you are and continue to do what you're not able to. And we all know that we all have a strength. We all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. And my weaknesses are just, you know, somebody else had the strength for that, so they can continue to do that. So you are right, Richard. And sometimes the perception is that, oh, we've all got dyslexia, so we're all the same. No, it isn't. You know, we all have our different challenges. Like, for example, I might be able to, you know, write a great report or something that's quite vital at work. I'll be able to do that today. But tomorrow, if my boss came up to me and said, oh, Liz, that report you wrote, can you give me another, like, I don't know, 500 words report? I probably won't be able to do that. And it's sometimes like, well, you did it yesterday, why can't you do it today? I don't know what the answer is to that. And, you know, you might find this in a workplace, you know, and it doesn't mean that the person's lazy or they're making it up or whatever. It's just that particular day, they're going through challenges and they're not able to perform. Doesn't mean they're not going to do the work. They might want to come back and pick up from that from another time and be able to move on to do something else for that day. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, just to speak to that, I'm dyslexic, my brother's dyslexic. We both work together in CareScribe. We've had the same upbringing. We're, you know, genetically very similar. He can do things that I really struggle with, and vice versa, you know, that related to our dyslexia. You know, we've got very different lived experiences. Yeah, that kind of nature versus nurture. It's, you know, what's the difference? But yeah, massive differences. And he needs tools that I don't need, and I need tools that he doesn't need. So yeah, there isn't one size fits all for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've probably got a time for probably another couple of questions. So I've got a couple here. So there's one which is, at what point do you accept that the industry you're in is having a detrimental effect on your health, and it's time to leave and look for a more neurodivergent friendly profession, e.g. colleagues in higher education are struggling due to lack of reasonable adjustments and excessive workloads?
That was a lot of question in one for me. So, but simplify for me, please, Richard.
Yeah. So
in other words,
basically, I guess, when is the time to look for a different profession versus ask for help in a scenario where you don't feel supported and it's starting to have an effect on your health at work?
To be honest with you, I just want to say that if you find that and I'm not going to speak, I'm not going to generalize what I'm about to say, but I'm going to speak from my lived experience. For example, if you're in a workplace, or when I was in a workplace and found that I was really, really struggling, nobody was giving me the help I needed, I was quick to quit, if I can use that word. You know, I'll be like, I'll pick up my bag and that's it, I'm going. But I wouldn't really say that was the best way to do it, because sometimes the best thing to do is to speak to your line manager and say that, what help can I get? Neurodiversity is a buzzing word for the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, 15 years. So, it's great to go to your line manager and say, I'm really struggling, and try and see if they can support you. Now, when is it enough to say, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm quitting? Our mental well-being is so important. It's so important to know that actually it's really affecting my health and I'm not able to perform in my role. And at this point, to be honest with you, you should still be speaking to your line manager. And I know not all line managers get it. Some of them just think, well, listen, I've got stats to me, I've got, this quota to me, and I need it sorted out. But I would say you have to look at yourself and think, actually, my mental health is really important for me. And I don't know the answer to that. That would have to be up to the individual, whether they'll say, actually, even though I'm really struggling, do I continue or do I look for a profession that will be dyslexic friendly or neurodiversity friendly organization? And now that we're working from home, some of us can work from home, it's even better to maybe even suggest, look, because I struggle with noise and the phones are ringing and people are talking in the office, I can't do the open plan office. Is it all right if I do 3 days at work, 2 days at work maybe, and 3 days in the office? Is it okay if I work from home because I'm struggling to focus in the office? And I know that during pandemic, and even now that we can work from home, it's really improved my mental health. And I enjoy my work a lot more because I don't have to be where there's so much noise going on, or perhaps where I'm really struggling to concentrate or focus. So that might be an option to ask if you can do hybrid work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, that's really helpful. Yeah, and if you don't ask, you never know. And yeah.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Well, I think I'm just looking at the time, and I think probably we'll need to put a stop to more questions. That doesn't mean don't ask them. That means that we'll get back to the other ones, the rest of the questions offline, and we'll ping you responses. So feel free to keep asking questions, and we'll get back to them. But thank you, everybody who's asked questions, everybody who's put messages in the chat. Yeah, both sort of the sort of positive affirmations and also the sort of sharing lived experiences and all of that has been great, and that's kind of what makes these webinars, I think, so valuable. So thank you for that and for coming along and joining us. Big thank you to Elizabeth for sharing. I mean, you can see from the messages and the chat how valuable everybody's found that, and I found it incredibly interesting to listen to. So thanks so much. Just to say that everybody is going to get a CPD certificate. So as you leave, there's a survey link. If you complete that survey, that's really helpful. We'll also send you a CPD certificate afterwards, so you've got that, and along with that will be the recording for those of you who are after a recording. As I mentioned, we host these events for free and pretty regularly, and we would love to hear your thoughts and recommendations and requests for future topics and speakers, because it just helps us, basically make sure these webinars are sort of serving the community that we're trying to build. So yeah, please do give feedback and tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see next time. And just to remind you, there's that next session, not online, but in person, November 7th in London. Come along. The last one was up in the north in Manchester, and it was fantastic. Yeah, we were there for the day. We had a great day. Please come and join us. It's on ADHD awareness. It's going to be fantastic. We'll send out some information about that, and hopefully we'll see lots of you there. And that's it. We're out of time. So yeah, thanks again to both Elizabeth and everybody who's joined. Thanks for participating, and hopefully we'll either see you in person in London next month, or we'll see you back online in the new year. Brilliant. That's a wrap. Thanks, everybody. We will,